Nash live on ESPN Dayton's Facebook page. Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio. All sports, all the time. This is 1410 ESPN Radio.
How in the world is it Thursday already? That's the first question I have. And what the hell is this cold weather stuff out there again? Like, we were out talking with a friend earlier today, and I'm not going to lie. I was like, all right, it's too cold for this. We welcome you in. Happy Thursday. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Brad Mays with Home Experts Realty. And, of course, Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. Excited to be with you here today. We got a jam-packed show coming up. A couple guests. We'll hear from Wright State head basketball coach Scott Nagy coming up about an hour from now. They have a big game with Oakland tonight. Horizon League quarterfinal action. Again, conference tournaments already kind of beginning for both men and women's basketball around the country. Coach K, his final game, is it at home or is it what's the big? They're doing the big old ceremony. When is that coming up?
I thought that's Saturday.
So it's coming up this weekend. The big build, like JJ Redick, Jay Williams, all Luke Kennard is. They did a list of former Duke players that are available that night who aren't playing in the NBA or like who are in the NBA who have off nights that night. But interestingly enough, a huge send off for Coach K. He has coached over 200 players. By the way, does that seem low?
No, that seems about right.
15 per season. So, yeah,
200 players that have played in the NBA.
200 former players combined. The article I read that they have. Maybe it's just that they have over 200 coming.
Okay,
that will be in attendance. But the tickets are $5,000-$6,000 a pop. I mean, we've talked about some of these big sporting events that have happened this year that ticket sales have been through the roof. So nonetheless, but look, the cameras froze. How about that? So we'll
I'm good.
That. It looks like hold up for those watching. Doesn't it look like I just picked a booger right out my nose? That looks like I just took the biggest chunk out of my nose. And
this is before your day, but I know our older listeners out there remember a song from Biz Markie that talked about what you were just talking about, going upstairs and picking a
moly,
bug.
I mean, it is what it is at this point, but we'll get that camera stuff. I got that does. It look like I just yanked a big old boogie right on my
staring at it.
I'm just like, what do I do with this?
Flicking it?
Do I flick it? Is it the old gene swipe underneath your chair? The dreaded oh gosh. But great start to the show today. But no, Scott Nagy, Wright State head basketball coach, will join us coming up at 4:15, and then we will hear from a couple members of the Dayton Hoopla, the organizing committee that helps bring us the first four each and every year. Excited about that. Scott DeBolt and Sarah Spees will join us coming up at 4:35. All right, opening up today, these storylines at the NFL Combine, they're weird. They're weird. The sports makes you say some of the strangest, weirdest things that you would never say. I would never look at another dude and be like, man, that dude's hands are small. Man, those hands are tiny, unless he has really, really tiny hands. But so Kenny Pickett, obviously this isn't a very deep quarterback class. How good will this quarterback class be? I don't know. It's not being propped up as one. Really, none of these quarterbacks are being propped up as guys that are going to come in and save the franchise of anyone that they land with. Kenny Pickett's a name that was kind of picking up some steam throughout the regular season. But, of course, the big headline, of course, for this NFL draft right now, this combine, it's a huge article. I'm having to scroll down 4 swipes down on my laptop to read this entire article that talks about how Kenny Pickett has a smaller hand than any quarterback in the NFL currently. Are we kidding me? Jeff Legwold, ESPN senior writer. I don't blame him for writing this article because for whatever reason, y'all weirdos are interested in hand size. Indianapolis is out Indianapolis. He goes, it's hands down the most digested, critiqued, and eyebrow-raising number attached to NFL quarterback prospects each year. And on Tuesday at the annual combine for the best players in the country, former Pitt quarterback Kenny Pickett became the latest high-profile passer to have his hand size become part of the pre-draft wind-up. What are we doing? What in the world is going on with that? Pickett's hand size. I mean, Joe Burrow just wrapped up one of the best starts to an NFL career that you could imagine. I think that I don't think there's a hot take at all. Patrick Mahomes had the best start to an NFL career of any quarterback in the history of the NFL, winning an MVP, winning a Super Bowl and a Super Bowl MVP. Year 4, getting his team to back-to-back Super Bowls, of course, trying to get back for the 3rd straight year this year, losing to Joe Burrow, of course, in the Bengals. But Patrick Mahomes has the best start in the history of the NFL quarterback. Joe Burrow, in my opinion, to go from 6 wins in 2 years to 4 wins, obviously the next year, 2 wins and 4 wins, 6 wins in 2 years. What he has been able to do in the first 2 years, 4 wins last year and then a Super Bowl trip this year. MVP conversation, unreal. Well, he was not supposed to be this good because his hands were small. You remember all the articles that came out about Joe Burrow and his small old hands? That is the weirdest thing in the world to critique a quarterback for. I get kind of annoyed with the size when people talk about how small quarterbacks, like it's not going to work, like Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield has a lot of issues at quarterback. He's not as accurate as he was in college, right? Now, could that be because of his size? I don't know. We see a lot of tall quarterbacks come in and they're not as accurate in the NFL as what they were when they were in college. Bottom line is that the things that we complain about and talk about and critique guys about, it's strange. You literally are going to cost guys draft positioning and money because there's weirdo reporters out there that like to critique hand size and put out long articles. This is a long article on ESPN. I mean, this is pretty insane. Pickett's right hand was measured at 8.5 inches, which would be the smallest of any quarterback currently in the NFL. We're talking about hand size. New Orleans quarterback Taysom Hill, whose hands were measured at 8 3/4 inches leading up to the 2017 draft, has the smallest hands of the signal callers, followed behind Bengals backup quarterback Brandon Allen, whose hands were measured at 8.5 inches. What is going on? Pickett, who was a Heisman Trophy finalist and won the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award in 2021, is obviously seen as a potential first-round pick entering this combine. He's the number 1 quarterback and number 19 prospect overall. Okay, according to Mel Kiper Jr.'s big board. He's the number 2 quarterback behind Liberty's Malik Willis and number 9 prospect overall on Todd McShay's rankings. So for those of you out there that put a lot of stock into Todd McShay and Mel Kiper, depending on which one you ask, Kenny Pickett falls between 1 and 2. Of course, obviously Malik Willis, the other quarterback getting a lot of attention. But Pickett participated. Here's the deal. He participated in the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, right? Last month. He elected not to get an official measurement for his hands. You want to talk about mental health and you want to talk about making people self-conscious. You want to talk about people making uncomfortable. Imagine going to a combine to work out and you're thinking about, man, I got to complete this throw. I got to make sure I'm in as good a shape as I've ever been. I got to make sure I put on a good show today. And you're walking in, putting your hands in your pockets because you just don't want people staring at your hands. That is strange. He refused, of all the things you can refuse. I understand, by the way. I know that people like to, especially with the 40 could be, John Ross is a prime example. If you go back, the Bengals specifically drafted him for speed and speed alone, and that was it. Speed and speed alone. They didn't look at anything else. It was all about his speed, right? So I understand why some athletes want to sit back and maybe not participate in the 40 because, hey, you know what? I'm already viewed as a top-notch athlete, a top wide receiver, top running back. My 40 could only hurt me if I know I'm not an elite runner as far as the 40 is concerned. I get why these are important, but at the same time, I think we live and die too much by what these reveal. Can you catch? How elusive are you? How elusive are you after the catch? How are you able to get open? Can you run routes? I think those things are very important. I'm not going to tell you that speed and athleticism doesn't matter, but I do think it doesn't matter as much when you're basically narrowing it all down to one particular training day and letting that be the prime decision maker of whether to draft a kid or not. Watch film. I'm not a football aficionado as far as a coach is concerned. I can't sit down with other coaches and watch film and critique film in the way that they do. I can't pretend that I could sit there and pinpoint whether a dude could play at the next level. But at the same time, I also have a hard time sitting back and looking at draft combine results and sitting there saying, yeah, well, he was the fastest quarterback there. He didn't overthrow one receiver. He was accurate on every freaking throw. He literally checked off but them damn hands. Those small hands. I don't think we could do it. I don't think we could do it. So Kenny Pickett goes on to say that he will try to improve his hand mobility through stretches ahead of the combine. What? This is his quote. The reason I didn't measure at the Senior Bowl was just to have those extra couple weeks, just kind of a common sense thing, to have more time to work the exercise. Whatever it measures, it measures. I'm sure that won't be the end of it, but that will be the last measurement I'm sure I'll take of it. So at the end of the day, and again, this is such a weird topic to open up with hand size of quarterbacks, but the combine, this is how popular the NFL is. We could talk about something as stupid as hand size, and that this is a combine that will pretty soon be able to be bid upon by major cities to have this being a traveling circus, just like the NFL draft is. Are you kidding me? This is a long article. I've said it a million times already. He finished his college career, folks, with the most 300 passing games and most 400-yard passing games in school history. He had 16 300-yard passing games. He had 400-yard. He had 5 400-yard passing games, most in school history. 32-17 was Pitt's record in those games that he started. Pitt won the ACC title game on December 4th over Wake Forest. All right, it is what it is. So then it goes on to talk about Joe Burrow. Bengals star Joe Burrow, who advanced to the Super Bowl last month, spent plenty of time leading up to the 2020 draft answering questions about his hand measurement, which came out at 9 inches. He joked on Twitter that he was considering retirement after he was informed that the football would be slipping out of his tiny little hands. He went number 1 in the draft, and I think he did pretty good. You want to go back to when they were listing some of the smallest hand quarterbacks. You want to talk about Taysom Hill, New Orleans quarterback Taysom Hill, hands measured at 8 3/4 inches leading up to the 17 draft. Do you think that he hasn't been able to make it in the NFL because he's just not the most skilled quarterback in the league, or is it because of the tiny hands? Is it the tiny hands? All right. What about, Brandon Allen, the backup quarterback for the Bengals? Second smallest hands in the NFL. Okay. Is he backing up Joe Burrow because he has tiny hands, or because he's just not that good of a quarterback? I think it's the latter, right? Weird conversation to have. And I promise not all conversations this afternoon will go that route. But 518-1410, 518-1410, that is the number to call and jump in on the conversation. Really excited for today's show. Just again, we're going to talk some first four coming up. In hour number 2, we'll, of course, dive into all the stuff going on in the community for the put on by the Dayton Hoopla when it comes to the first four. Selection Sunday already coming up a week from this Sunday. Tonight, Wright State welcomes in Oakland. Horizon League quarterfinal action. In fact, we'll know by the end of this weekend if Wright State will be Horizon League champions or not. Keep in mind, Joe Lenardi on his bracketology report. In fact, it's not just his report, but him and I kind of go back and forth. He sends me regular updates on some teams to kind of keep an eye out for some talking points. That if Wright State wins the Horizon League tournament, whoever the Horizon League tournament champion will be, he has them as a 16 seed. I think that's low. I think it's disrespectful, to be honest with you. I cover this league. I'm never going to pretend that it's the best league out there. Pretty damn good teams in this conference. Dennis Gates at Cleveland State does a fantastic job. Darren Horn at Northern Kentucky. I mean, this is a team that has been to the NCAA tournament 3 of the last 4 years. I mean, that's a hell of a program over there. Darren Horn took over for John Brandon, who, of course, was fired by Cincinnati. And John Brandon has spent a lot of times. He's close with Anthony Grant. I see John Brandon. I've seen him at quite a few UD games this year. But it's a very good league. It's not the best league, but it's a very, very good league. 16 seed. But what that could mean for Wright State potentially playing in Dayton if they win the Horizon League championship. We'll get to all that coming up. Plus, Dayton Flyers still in the bubble. What did that win the other night over Richmond mean? We'll talk about all that. 518-1410. Kev's back with us too, so we can make fun of this weird, creepy article about hand size. Don't go anywhere.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com.
No contract, no compromise.
A month equals 30 days. See terms and conditions at straighttalk.com. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We'll get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we'll take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $69.99. You can learn more about our battery selection at AutoZone.com. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the NPD Group 2021.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
Ray Magliozzi here. eBay Motors has the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them. And if there's one thing I love, it's great parts and great prices. eBay Motors, let's ride.
If you're suffering every day with joint pain, stop and listen. You can get real, lasting relief now with natural biologic treatments at QC Kinetic. Hey, it's Keith Byers. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative solutions that can restore and repair damaged tissue with no surgery and no drugs. This is the relief you've been hoping for. The unique protocols at QC Kinetics were created by a physician with years of study in regenerative restorative medicine. They're treating patients every day in hundreds of clinics nationwide with remarkable success, life-changing results with zero downtime. It's the new, better, smarter, non-surgical, non-invasive way to deal with joint pain. And yes, they're right here, ready to help you now. Call for a free consultation. Make this spring and summer your best ever with no joint pain holding you back. Give them a call at 937-936-0325. One more time, 937-936-0325.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Presented by Brad Mays with Home Experts Realty. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, we are back. I think I got the camera situation figured out. Yeah, hey, there we go. The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. What we got?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, I was gonna say probably. Yeah, big show coming up throughout the day. We will be joined in hour 2 at 4:30. Sarah Spees, the Dayton Hoopla director, as well as Scott DeBolt, senior associate athletics director at UD, as well as the executive director for the University of Dayton Arena. Let's talk about the build-up to the first four as Selection Sunday already coming up a week from this Sunday. And so I was going back and forth with Joe Lenardi the other day, Kev, because it was interesting kind of seeing his latest bracketology report that he has had the winner of the Horizon League tournament being a 16 seed. We've talked a lot about the Dayton Flyers bubble, being on the bubble as far as that large is concerned. The bottom line is I know UD is the big dog in town, and obviously Anthony Grant recruits at such a different level than what Wright State does, and that has to do with the different conferences and just the look at all the resources and the money that's been invested into that program, the arena, and what have you. But following both teams, so Dayton is listed as the next 4 out on his recent bubble. If the first 4 was today, your 16 seed matchups would be Alcorn State, New Orleans, as well as Bryant and Norfolk State. Not a lot of buzz there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Memphis and Indiana, as well as San Diego State and Rutgers. And how about Rutgers last night? A huge win. Another big buzzer beater, of course. We've seen Ron Harper Jr. That dude's
like a third one this year.
He's clutch. Look out for him at that next level, and look out for him come Big Ten tournament around the corner as well. Look out for him come NCAA tournament. In fact, I always start around this year, really start paying attention to not everyone's full body of work, but who's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Rutgers is hot. And you really got to start looking at those fringe teams and by the way, it's definitely, it's not rare to see a team in the first 4 make a run.
Right.
Hell, didn't UCLA, weren't they a first 4 team last year?
Yes.
So they made their whole run to the Final Four. So every year, but that's because UCLA was hot at the right time. Rutgers is hot right now. Look out. No, those 16 seed matchups, Kev. Your Alcorn State, New Orleans, your Bryant, Norfolk State. There are times where a bracket could be manipulated a little bit. Not manipulated, but there could be a team that in a certain region that could lead to a little bit more tickets. So you're not going to alter the competitive balance of a bracket to squeeze a team in. But if a team is in a position that makes sense to put them in a position that is going to bring about a little bit more buzz, I think we'll do it. At UD Arena, no one's getting all jacked up for the 16 seed matchups, right? Is anyone saying, man, I can't wait to watch Alcorn State if they're the ones that end up making it? No. All right. No disrespect to Bryant or Norfolk State, Alcorn, New Orleans, what have you. That's not the case. But I sent a text to Joe Lenardi. I said, hey, you came on the show last week. I'm just going to text a couple things so that way I can use the feedback on the show. And so consistently, he has had Cleveland State as the auto qualifier out of the Horizon League as the 16th seed. And I find that interesting because Wright State, and they're in action tonight, quarterfinal action. They welcome in Oakland. Wright State has just as good a chance to win this as anyone else in this tournament. I know that sounds like, well, duh, you could say that about any conference tournament. No, one game separates a half a game. Wright State was a half a game away from winning the conference outright. That's how tight. Teams 1 through 6 in the conference, one game separates the first place team and the 6th place team. They're all pretty much dang near even. Okay. So if Wright State goes on to win this, Kev, I asked him, I said, so you've had consistently Cleveland State as the 16th seed, as one of the 16 seeds with the auto qualifier. If Wright State wins it, what's the chances that they get that first 4 nod? I also think the Horizon League's being disrespected with the 16 seed, nod, but at the same time, I'd find it pretty badass if they found a way to put Wright State at the arena for the first 4, and Scott Nagy getting a chance to get his first NCAA tournament win, to see, ironically enough, the Wright State Raiders get their first ever NCAA tournament win in program history at UD Arena. How ironic would that be? I'm a huge fan of that. How about this other scenario that's been pitched? Not really pitched, but this is a team that looks pretty comfortable in Joe Lenardi's latest bracketology report. Ohio State dropped to 6th. That was before their back-to-back losses that they have experienced since then. Ohio State is dropping fast.
Yeah.
So Joe Lenardi said, if you want a chance to watch Ohio State at UD Arena, you may be an Ohio State fan, but he shot me a note and said, he goes, if I'm you, I'm pulling for Ohio State to lose their regular season finale and to get bumped out of the conference tournament early. He goes, if that happens, they're in the first 4. He goes, they're going to be around that 11, 12 seed. He goes, they'll get that little friendly nod, most likely to be one of those teams playing in the first 4 at UD Arena. Again, we're all projecting that we're all just, we're just kind of seeing how the chips fall a little bit. That's what's fun about this. But I love the first 4 with the 11 and 12 seed matchups because you get some good quality brands in there. And how ironic would that, not ironic, but how special would that be to get 2 Ohio schools in there if Wright State wins? Hell, Cleveland State too, if they win the Horizon. Like, I'd love to see Dennis Gates, Torrey Patton from Trotwood. Is it Parker? I think it's Deshaun Parker Is he from Wayne or Trotwood? He played at Appalachian State last year, I believe, on that Sweet 16 Appalachian State team, and he entered the transfer portal and went over to Cleveland State. So there's some local kids on that Cleveland State team that I would love a chance to see play. I'm not pulling for them over Wright State, of course, but if there's a team to win it to get there, there you go. But nonetheless, I'm excited following this path, if you will, to the first four. As again, the first four back in Dayton for the first time in 2 years, of course, thanks to COVID. So I should say thanks to COVID, due to COVID. I'm not thanking COVID for anything. So there you go.
Man, the thing about it is Ohio State basketball, they are falling and falling fast. We were talking about the loss to Nebraska yesterday. Like, man, Nebraska hoops, I can't remember the last time Nebraska hoops had a big win. But getting that win over Ohio State's big. So Ohio State, we talked to Joe, like, what is it, last week? He was like, oh, yeah, they're a 4 or 5. Now they're talking about a first 4. Bad losses get you in the first 4 real quick.
Especially, it's not just you worded that correct. Not losses, bad losses. You're going to pick up losses in the Big Ten,
right?
But what you can't have happen is pick up bad losses. I mean, this is a program in Nebraska with Hoiberg, Kev, that announced that they were bringing it back next year, and people were furious. This is back-to-back sporting seasons where an athletics department had to come out and announce that Scott Frost is coming back and announce that Hoiberg's coming back, and those fans are pissed. That is not a good, healthy vibe over there in the cornfields. Just saying.
Ohio State has to win these next 2 games. They got to beat Sparty tonight, and then they got that team up north on, what is that, Saturday or Sunday?
Which becomes very interesting because both of those 2 teams, I mean, that's almost like a play-in game kind of, because Michigan's on the bubble as well.
Yeah.
You look at the bubble right now. Here are the teams on the bubble as far as Joe Lunardi's latest. And again, Joe Lunardi is not the official. This is not the official one, but relatively, if you go look at Palm and all those guys, like they're all relatively the same. Michigan right now they're right now on the bubble. Okay, they're a bubble team right now. Ohio State could potentially fall if they lose to Michigan. Michigan has in the last 4 buys round on the bubble for Joe Lunardi. You lose to Michigan. You lose to Michigan State. That could be a problem, especially after losing these last 2. Ohio State can win one of these next 2, and at the end of the day, you've still lost 3 or 4 heading into the conference tournament, which is not a good thing. Mm-hmm. So Ohio State's not in trouble. They're not going to fall out of the NCAA tournament. I think they're good. I think they can lose out and still technically get in. You don't want to do that. I'm not promoting that, but right. I do know that I'm not pulling for Ohio State to lose, but I'm also not against being able to get an up-close seat to watch Ohio State play at UD Arena. I think that'd be pretty damn cool.
The E.J. Liddell show.
Can you imagine Chris Holtman against like a Penny Hardaway, Memphis, Ohio State? That's a hell of an NCAA tournament matchup in the first 4. The other thing, too, like Memphis, they're 11-5, 17-9 overall. Penny Hardaway has been able to kind of ride the ship a little bit. Remember he cussed out a reporter earlier in the year. They've been banged up with injuries. No one's willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because they shouldn't. Injuries are part of the game. I get that. But at the same time, he was frustrated saying, you guys are trying to hold this team to a standard of the expectations coming into the season. Basically, like everything I've said about the Browns coming in.
It only took you a matter of time. I was all
about Penny Hardaway when he was doing this, because Penny Hardaway was calling out everybody saying, he goes, first of all, obviously with your expectations coming into the season, you guys haven't been able to live up for it. Well, that set him over the top, because he said, first of all, you can't sit there and look at this team that's injured and all of the star players that made this team have the expectations that they had, and half of them are out with injury, and you're sitting there saying, well, man, you guys aren't living up to the expectations. Well, no. That's what I said about Cleveland. I was like, the reason that they had the expectations they did is because the way the roster was constructed. Well, when half the roster's banged up, has COVID, injured, whatever have you, you're not going to live up to those expectations because you're not the same team coming in as, it is what it is. But I was a big Penny Hardaway fan. He defended his team. People didn't like it, but you know what? I do kind of like the player movement taking over alma maters, and being that they have that player's mentality. Anthony Grant just a week and a half, 2 weeks ago was ready to go throw hands with the fan in the stand because he was kind of going at his player Mally Smith, right? And it was Jordan Air Jet or something like that, former St. Louis player. St. Louis beat up on UD, but Anthony Grant has one of my favorite memes, or not memes or gifs or whatever, floating around of him just doing the head nod. Like Anthony Grant was ready to just throw down. And I like seeing the aggression of these coaches. I was not a fan of Juwan Howard, open hand B slapping, whatever his name is, one of the assistant coaches but I do like the fire of Juwan Howard. I like when Anthony Grant, who's very kind of just poised on the sideline, it takes a lot to get him fired up. I love when Anthony Grant kind of goes to that next level. I love watching Penny Hardaway look like a player on the sideline. That's what I kind of enjoy. I know most coaches are former players, Kev, but not like at the elite level.
Right.
These former elite players that are coaches right now, it is fun, and I enjoy watching them on the sideline. They dress different, they look different, they act different, and it's because they're former players and they have that player mentality. I'm all for it. I love it. I would love to see Penny Hardaway at UD Arena for the first four.
That would be awesome. Be also awesome if Imani Bates was playing. He hasn't played since January. I know he's like dealing with a foot situation. So, when you have a high level prospect like that who graduated from high school early, enrolled in Memphis and everything like that, is some delicate situations going on there, because obviously he has high hopes and aspirations of playing on the next level and everything like that. You don't want to risk injuring that foot anymore. But us as basketball fans, we want to see this top prospect in the first four at UD Arena. So Imani, go ahead and play, please.
Yeah. So again, Dayton's still in the bubble. Every time I talk to anyone at UD or anyone that's covering this, I bring it. Well, there's still a chance, right? UD's on the bubble. No, they have to win the conference tournament. They have to win the conference tournament. Their final schedule is as this. They close out, against Davidson. So that's coming up later on this week. That's on USA Network. It's a 12:30 p.m. tip-off. So that's coming up later on. So just in a few days. So bottom line is that Davidson game a must-win? The only reason I say it's not a must-win, you're not getting an at-large at this point. You want to get a win against Davidson, though, heading into the conference tournament. It's been, how many decades since the last time they won the A-10 tournament? It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure to have to win a conference tournament to get into a tournament. So basically what we're saying is the NCAA tournament has already started. I love when people say, well, the tournament doesn't start until March, I think 13th and 14th or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, the tournament's already started. Wright State is basically, it's win or go home. I don't think Wright State's going to participate in any other off-season tournament. Like, they didn't win the conference, so they're not going to get the NIT bid. So tonight they have Oakland, very good Oakland team, by the way. They lose, their season's done. It's March Madness already. For one, it's March, but it's March Madness already. So it's win or go home, or win or stay home if you're Wright State tonight. But Dayton, same thing. When you head to Brooklyn for the A-10 tournament, man, they got to find a way. They got to find a way. They got to find a way to end that drought of not winning the A-10 championship, the tournament. I'd love to see them dancing in March. I would love to see Wright State, UD, Ohio State all dancing in the NCAA tournament.
The reason why winning for UD versus Davidson is so important, you don't want to get another bad loss, because you're not on that first line of first teams out. But we've seen time and time again upsets happen. One big league situations, and a team that had no business going and winning their conference tournament, they end up upsetting them and winning it all. I mean, you look out there where Gonzaga plays. It's always Gonzaga and St. Mary's. But there's other teams that play out there. What if they jump up there and beat St. Mary's and Gonzaga and they still wanted to be it? So you don't want to be a situation where you're going to be viewed as like, well, the one bid league took another one and now you're definitely out. So you want to keep winning games and then have that momentum going into the tournament in Brooklyn. So I think it's important for them to get this win. But obviously the most important thing and to punch your ticket to March Madness is to go win the A-10 tournament. We've been doing this show together for 2 years. We've been saying the same thing for 2 years. Go win the A-10 tournament. Before, it was like, hey, man, cap off the season the right way. You're regular season champs. Go win a tournament. Then, obviously, the tournament got canceled because of COVID and everything like that. And then last year, we're talking about it. Well, your only way to get into the tournament is to win your conference tournament. That didn't happen. So, same new year, same song. Go win the A-10 tournament.
You weren't in here, switching gears here a little bit, but you weren't in here, of course, when this weird article on NFL. Well, it was on ESPN's side. Clicked on it. It's a long-ass article about Kenny Pickett's hand size.
Oh, boy.
Just switching gears, because you weren't in here for this conversation, and I know we have a couple of callers on hold. I'll get you guys in literally 60 seconds. But this long article highlighting the hand size of Kenny Pickett. Now, he's, it's not a very deep quarterback draft whatsoever, but Kenny Pickett as well as Malik Willis are kind of the two, standouts, if you will, of this weaker quarterback class. But one of the criticisms, if you will, is Kenny Pickett's hand size. Kenny Pickett, Kev, has already announced, he's in the Heisman conversation, all that stuff. He has already announced that he was not going to participate in the hand measurement. He elected not to get an official measurement for his hands. Such a weird thing that we talk about in sports. Like, this is silly. Joe Burrow, famously known for 2 years ago saying basically he's just going to retire because his little hands, he's not going to be able to hold on to the ball and everything else. This is so silly. They're trying to say, well, if you look at the quarterbacks that are bad, a lot of them have small hands. Well, maybe it's just because they're bad. Maybe they're just bad with small hands. How many quarterbacks are good with small hands? Joe Burrow put an end to that. But, Baker Mayfield had the small hand measurement. Drew Brees had the small hand measurement. Can we stop with this creepy ass small hand measurement? Can we, please?
It's weird. I have a love-hate relationship with the combine. So many people get enamored with people doing the bench press and doing the 40-yard dash and the vertical jump and everything like that. Look, man, these guys out here, and matter of fact, guys around this area in the high school, if you give them 3 months, they're going to wow you in these drills because they've been working on it for 3 months. This is the biggest job interview of their life. So they're going to wow you because they're already supremely talented athletes and everything like that. So watching a guy run 40 yards real fast, yeah, it's pretty cool. But I don't watch it. I'm not locked in like that. I'll check out the results and everything like that. Obviously, check in on the Buckeye guys. Go see how tall somebody really is in real life and see what type of 40 these guys ran and everything like that to see I told you Garrett Wilson was super fast. He ran a 4.3. Yeah, okay. But when we start doing the whole hand measurements, head measurements, arm length, and all that type of stuff, I'm out. I got nothing for you, man, because we've seen so many people, and you just brought one up, Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's undersized, but what did he do? He made adjustments not only to his throwing motion, but his playing style to not only be a baller at Purdue, but be a baller and a Hall of Famer in the NFL. So I can't get on board with this whole small hand size. I know I saw an article about him he wears gloves because he has small hands and everything like that. When I was like, what does that mean? Big Ben has huge hands and he wore gloves too when it got cold outside. So I can't get behind it. Maybe I'm just not smart enough to understand all this jargon about hand size and all that type of stuff. They even was talking about foot size one day. Yeah, man, he wears a size 15 shoe. That's gross.
15. 518-1410. Kev, who we got?
We got Jeff, line 2.
Jeff, how are you, sir?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Not too much. Hey, thanks for holding, man. Appreciate you.
Oh, you're cool. This is actually Jesse from Kettering. It's okay, though. First time caller.
Jesse, not Jeff.
You've already warned that you were going to try and stir things up today. Well, I blood pressure pills today, so you
did you see that? No, I really enjoyed your guys' epic hand conversation for the first half an hour. I've been glued to the radio.
Thank for that, by the way? Thank Rob Manfred. Thank Major League Baseball, man. There's going to be a lot of hand-size conversations for a while.
hey, as a guy with big hands, you know what they say, big hands, hot wife, and I got that going for me. But also, right before your hand conversations, which was epic, by the way, you said something about quarterbacks to start the league. And their best starts. And you said Patrick Mahomes, which I would agree. Joe Burrow is comparable. But I thought of a couple other names how about Tom Brady to start the league when he came in for Drew Bledsoe? And as much as I hate to say it, sorry, Kev, but Ben Roethlisberger also, to start the league. When you say quarterbacks to start the league and how good they did their first go at it.
Not bad. You know what? We could do an official preparation list of this to take a look to rank the best starts for the quarterback position. Who also had like Tom Brady, Super Bowl early, Big Ben, Super Bowl early. Obviously Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow takes his team to a Super Bowl. I was about to put Lamar Jackson in that conversation because Lamar, remember Harbaugh was done. Harbaugh had announced that he was not coming back that season. The Ravens were not in the playoff picture whatsoever. They switched from Flacco due to the injury over to Lamar, and the next thing you know, they will lose one game the rest of the way, make the playoffs, and he's been a star ever since. I could put him in that conversation, but everyone we've talked about at least has been in the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl, so those are very good. Very good.
Lamar Jackson is not comparable, really. I mean, I don't know really where you're going. I don't know where you were going with that one. But.
What with Lamar? Okay. You know, Lamar
Well, you're
literally
right.
single-handedly saved his coach's job. Single-handedly, all of a sudden the Ravens went from a non-playoff team looking like they're in trouble to he's, you know, an MVP candidate, wins an MVP. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with Lamar.
You're right. We should talk about hands some more. I want to do that.
Aye.
Y'all have a good weekend, man.
Adios. I mean, we could take a deeper dive into that another time, Kev, but right, like if you look at the quarterbacks who have had the best start to an NFL career, Big Ben won it his second year, right?
Second year. First year, he was 14-1 as a starter. Obviously led a lot by the run game and the defense, but I mean, Tommy Maddox, I believe, started the season out and then got hurt, and then he came in versus the Ravens and then took them all the way to the AFC Championship where they lost to the Pats. I believe they lost to the Pats. Then the next year, they won the Super Bowl. They beat – who did they beat? They beat the Bengals. They beat the
Seahawks.
Colts. Then they went to Denver and won, and then beat the Seahawks in Detroit for the Super Bowl.
Alexander, the running back. Like how dominant he was.
Alexander.
He won an MVP. I forgot about that. You know what?
Cincinnati's finest.
Folks, you know what I'm going to do? Maybe I've been drinking a little bit too much during the day. I might have had a beverage or two during lunch.
You deserve it.
I wish if Burrow had won an MVP, I'd have more base to this. I think Burrow's start to his career is more impressive than Patrick Mahomes and others from the standpoint of Patrick Mahomes won an MVP with the Super Bowl roster around him already, or a playoff roster around him already. Like Joe Burrow took over a team that won 6 games in 2 years, and like just literally, the whole vibe of the city is just it's night and day different. The team was in the Super Bowl in his first full year as I guess second year, but like his first full year in the league without interruption due to injury. You know, you talk about Russell Wilson winning a Super Bowl in his second year, getting to 2 Super Bowls in the first 3 years, already on a very good team, had the best defense in the league. Joe Burrow played on a team that really didn't have the best at anything. You had the best rookie wide receiver. You didn't have the best run game. You didn't have the best offense. You didn't have the best defense. Joe Burrow, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's that aspect. So you look at the fact that Russell Wilson had the team that had the best defense. Mm-hmm. Boom. You look at Patrick Mahomes, who takes over an offense, who has the best offensive-minded head coach, the best offensive coordinator, the best offense. Boom. Okay, that makes sense why they won that. Tom Brady, of course, the defense, playing for the best coach in the NFL, and Bill Belichick. Boom. Like you start going down the list of these players who have had the best starts over anybody else to their NFL career. I'm a Joe Burrow hater, but even I could say that I think that because of the fact that Joe Burrow Patrick Mahomes went to a very, very good team, a playoff team. The Seahawks were a middle of the pack team. They got him in the 3rd round. The fact that a lottery pick like Joe, not a lottery pick, but a number 1 overall pick took over and instantly turned it around. A lot of those other quarterbacks we talked about were drafted a little bit later. Big Ben, I think, deserves to be up at that top of the list. I think you could argue the best start to a career has to be Joe Burrow, Ben Roethlisberger, just on the last 2 decades at least, mainly because you look at the fact that both took over teams who were non-playoff teams and very, very bad, and the next thing you know, they're instant success right off the bat just because of them.
Yeah. When you get the ultimate prize, like winning a Super Bowl or even just getting to a Super Bowl, that definitely propels you up there. I'm definitely with you with the Lamar thing, man. Like we talked about, you just said, I don't want to regurgitate what you said, but Harbaugh was done. He was cooked. That message had run stale on the team. They were ready to move on. And the moving on process started with putting the rookie quarterback in there and switching up the offense. And then they just went on a tear, and then he gets a new contract extension. The following year, Lamar Jackson and the offense explodes. He wins the MVP and everything like that. And then the expectations change just like that. But he hasn't been able to lead his team to the Super Bowl. If he was able to lead his team to the Super Bowl, I would have him up there as well. But, when you get to the Super Bowl and you hoist the Lombardi, you got to put them up there on that next level. I would even put Dan Marino on that, because not only was Dan Marino in the Super Bowl his second year, he broke passing record after passing record after passing record as a second-year guy in the league. I mean, some of his passing numbers he put up in the second season still haven't been broken to this day. And this is in the 80s, where you can mug a wide receiver all the way down the field. So I would definitely put Dan Marino on that page as well.
So, and again, I'd have to go. The reason Joe Burrow, to me, has had the most impressive 2-year start to a career over any other quarterback in the last 2 decades, mainly is because how bad of an organization the Bengals are. The Chiefs are a great organization. The Patriots are a great organization. Big Ben having success in Pittsburgh, it's a surprise because of coming from Miami of Ohio and they had been looking for a quarterback for a few years. You know what I mean? But it's not surprising. It's Pittsburgh. That's what Pittsburgh does. Tom Brady with the Patriots. That's what the Patriots do. So even the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, like it's a good, well-run organization. The odds that Joe Burrow has had to overcome to get to that point, the horrible offensive line, sacked 70 times. The Bengals are not a good organization. I'm not budging on that. If they have a couple more years of drafting at a high level and can sustain the success, then fine. But I learned with the Browns, just because you have one good year, it doesn't mean that you're promised more good years. You have to be able to sustain it. How many guys take their foot off the gas in preparation for next season, this coming up off season? Because, well, hell, we went to the Super Bowl. Jamar Chase, does he keep that drive going? These guys, of course they are. I'm not anticipating that they don't, but let's not be naive to the fact that sometimes the reason that the Super Bowl hangover is such a real thing is because I think teams take their foot off the gas. They aren't as aggressive in preparing for the next season as what they were before. They felt that, man, not that it was easy getting there, but they felt that, man, we're already there. We're already naturally just going to be better the next year. But the point is, of all the quarterbacks that have had the best start to a career, Patrick Mahomes automatically gets thrown in there, but it was easier for him to have that start because of the elite weapons he had around him. For me, it's Joe Burrow. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I'm going to defend Joe Burrow in that. But let's pick up with that. 518-1410. Which quarterback in the last 2 decades has had the most impressive start to a career? Everyone says Patrick Mahomes, right? Patrick Mahomes, he won a Super Bowl, he won an MVP, and don't get me wrong, that's beyond impressive. But as much as I am critical of Joe Burrow, I can't ignore the fact that out of all those quarterbacks that have won Super Bowls or been to Super Bowls in the first couple of years of their career, they all played for great organizations. Joe Burrow plays for the Bengals. Joe Burrow got sacked 70 times. I don't know. I think we need to have that conversation. 518-1410. Let's talk. We'll be back.
The Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Presented by Brad Mays with Home Experts Realty. Weekdays at 3 p.m. on 1410 ESPN Radio.
I'm Terry Krupp of Laird's Tax and Accounting, serving this area's tax and accounting needs for over 80 years. Tax season is here. We invite you to discover how we can make your tax filing experience easier. Our professional staff assures your return is accurate with maximum use of legitimate deductions. Since our founding, we have been trusted because of our knowledge of the tax code and for standing behind your return if the IRS calls. Contact us at 937-325-6571. Information at lairdstax.com.
Don't put it off any longer. You know it's time. Time for a bathroom upgrade by Bath Creations. Bath Creations is a leader in bathroom renovations, providing the very best value in bath and shower remodeling and proudly made in the USA. With Bath Creations, you get a beautiful modern bathroom that's safe, comfortable, and affordable. Attention first responders, veterans, and active military. Save $500 off your purchase right now. Visit Poe Avenue in Dayton or online at mybathcreations.com. And upgrade today.
Want to find out what handheld perfection tastes like? Just stop by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken today for a flawless family feast with the 12-piece strips meal at a great price. Get 12 premium tenderloins that are freshly marinated, honey-dipped, hand-breaded, and cooked to crispy perfection, along with 3 large sides, 6 fluffy biscuits, and 4 of your favorite Lee sauces. This is dippable chicken done right. Get the best in boneless chicken with the 12-piece strips meal at a great price. Only at Lee's, famous for chicken.
When it comes to your credit card, Discover believes in having real people available 24/7 to help answer your questions. Discover, exceptionally common sense.
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street are huge supporters of the Dayton Flyers. Whether you're one of the 13,000 fans cheering on the Flyers at UD Arena or one of the hundreds of fans packed inside Tim's on game day, there is only 2 places that you can feel the passion of the Flyer faithful more than anywhere else. Timothy's Bar and Grill is also a sponsor of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash in the afternoons and the Talking Out Loud Hour on Thursday nights with Sully. Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. Go Flyers.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Montgomery County veterans, we're here to serve you. You served your country, and now it's time we served you. You are entitled to many VA benefits, to include compensation, pension, and more. Call 937-225-4801 or online at mcvsc.org.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on The Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
Jeff Graham.
Trotwood's coach, okay.
Trotwood, yeah. Trotwood coach Jefferson County. And I always, I'm supposed to get out there later in the springtime. I'm going to come see him later in the spring. But I used to spend a lot of time when we played together at the Jets in Dayton, Ohio with him. I'm familiar with Bob Evans, as I always tease him. But man, only good food place y'all got out there. Bob Evans.
Don't miss the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Weekdays from 3 to 6 p.m. on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. We are Dayton's home of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
And into the end zone goes Chris Olave. KJ Hill, 6-yard touchdown catch. Right sideline and down he goes to the end zone.
WING, 1410 Dayton's ESPN Radio.
518-1410, 518-1410, hour 2. Wright State head basketball coach Scott Nagy joins us coming up 15 minutes from now. Wright State, Oakland. Wright State, the 4 seed. I said 2 seed yesterday. That was incorrect. They are the 4 seed. 4 seed going up against, welcoming in the 5 seed, the Oakland Golden Grizzlies. Like I said, the Cleveland State Vikings, one game separates them from the number 6 team in the league. Like, that's how tight of a race it was. And, coach has talked all year about, half a game. I mean, one game goes different. One Horizon League game goes different. They're conference champions for the, 5th straight year. I think they were 4th straight year.
4.
It would have been their 4th straight season being able to come away. So they missed out on 4 straight Horizon League regular season titles by a half a game this year. That's how tight the league is. So that game tonight with Oakland, Marcus Kane, super talented. I think he transferred from Marquette. I mean, he's that Greg Campy.
You say he got 40 against Wright State?
No, that was Antoine Davis, the kid from Detroit. What's his name? Coach Davis's son.
Yeah, from Indiana.
But what's Davis's first name? Why am I drawing a blank? I know Antoine Davis, but his dad, either way, coached at Indiana. It's driving me nuts. But Oakland's good. So Greg Campy, you realize when Coach K, and I think when Boeheim comes out, I think if I'm not mistaken, the winningest coach in college basketball that'll be left after Coach Boeheim retires will be Greg Campy.
Wow.
That's Greg Campy is one of the best coaches out there, and I love the fact that he's been loyal and has kind of stuck with Oakland the entire time, and I hope that they continue to stick with him. Problem is, he has probably the most talented roster every year in the league, and he likes to build his team through the transfer portal. But the problem is I always say it's not the most talented team that wins it; it's the best team, and Oakland rarely is the best team. This has been one of their better ones. They beat Oklahoma State earlier in the year, which sounds like better than what it is. Because have you ever seen a team fall off the way Oklahoma State did?
He's in the NBA, Kate Cunningham.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but let me go back to the standings. I have to make sure I get this correct, because I thought when they were on ESPN or something the other night, someone did a little screenshot. Mike Davis. My goodness. I said Mark Davis. I mean, Mark Davis doesn't sound right. So I'm waiting for our awesome ass internet here to allow this to pop up for the standings. But Oklahoma State has some embarrassingly bad record. It's not good. The season that they've had, they made a Sweet 16 run last year. The coach got some major extension, and now all of a sudden they come back after that great year last year, and they find themselves in a very interesting situation. But yeah, Oklahoma State, they're 14-15. That's not that bad. I don't know what I was thinking. Either way, I thought it was a worse situation than that. How about West Virginia? 3-14 in Big 12 play, 14-16 overall. But very interesting how that's kind of panned out. This record's bad. I'm a huge Patrick Ewing fan.
Oh man,
he can't keep that job.
Over in conference.
But you're 6-23 overall. You're 0-18 in Big East play. I know the Big East is good. You have UConn, which, by the way, so happy to see that UConn is back.
Welcome back.
First of all, back in the Big East, but back in the top 25 and back at being a team. Like, I can't wait to fill out our bracket and again get to UConn and figure out like how far you want to advance them. I love UConn being back in the fold. They're 21-8. Like, UConn's not back, but like they're back from the dead because they had been kind of dormant for a while. Of course, they were kind of went under for a while after that Kevin Ollie investigation, and Kevin Ollie got hit with a lot of that.
Yeah.
And, he win his?
Yeah, he won that.
He won that. Yeah.
Yep.
So he was the the scapegoat, if you will. Well, he got the last laugh because I think he got a nice little payday, if I'm not mistaken. So Villanova, 15-4, 22-7 overall. And then Providence. How about Providence, man? That 24-4, top 10 team in the country. But really good, the Big East Conference is, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, man. I said this when Joe Lunardi was on, man. Teams that left the Big East, like my beloved Syracuse, you're not going to win again, man. You're not going to win again because of greed. And you shouldn't win again because of greed. Y'all left the Big East, probably the best basketball conference ever, for the check. And now everybody's suffering because you talked about all those teams that are playing good basketball. Tell me what channel they come on. We don't know. Back before, Big East game of the week was on Monday. Big Mondays. You knew it. Like, oh, man, UConn, Syracuse, UConn, Georgetown. All that game is coming on at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Now, you can't find it. You can't find their games, man. So it's the curse of the Big East, man. It's the curse of the Big East, dude. Teams that left the Big East high and dry for the check of the money and everything like that, y'all not winning nothing, man. And as much as I'm a Syracuse fan, it serves you right, man. Serves you right.
NBA news, Kev. It does appear that the injured foot of Zion, the bone does appear to be healing properly, whatever that means. If Zion Williams does not play a game for the rest of the season, he will have only played 3 more games than Greg Oden at this point. And the conversation, of course, always has to come from, how big of a bust is Zion at this point? And, would you consider him? And Kev will be back with us in a moment. But, is Zion Williams in a bust? I'd have to say that based on all the expectations. First of all, I don't think it's ever fair to label anyone a bust until their career is done. Because I do think that there is time that if Zion does end up, finding himself in a different spot and is able to turn his career around and he ends up being a 20-10 guy and lives up to being an all-star in the NBA, then all of a sudden, no, he's not a bust. But has he been a bust thus far? I guess if that's how you want to word it. But a bigger bust, had this sent to me earlier today, Greg Oden or Zion. And I really don't have it's very tough for me. I'm going to have to say at this point, I think it's more Zion than Greg Oden, mainly because Greg Oden was he was so beloved by his teammates. He did everything that he could to come back. He came back on multiple occasions and continued to fight, continued to battle. I think the problem is that you had a lot of people who were trying to take Greg Oden because of the way that he was built, the way that he looked like the next big dominant center. At that time, I thought there was a lot of expectations for him as a center, mainly because at that time, the big man was still very important in the NBA. The center position was still very important in the NBA. And what also made it interesting is because Portland had a tough choice to make between Greg Oden and at the time, Kevin Durant. It is crazy to me that Kevin Durant is still thriving in the league. And you look at the fact that, those two came into the league together. Kevin Durant is one hell of a talent, as you now know, right? Like, he's pretty good, pretty solid. He's okay. Like, he's one of the top players in the NBA. No, he's going to go down as one of the best of all time. So I hate when people say, man, Portland screwed up because they didn't take, Kevin Durant. Well, it's easy to say that now, but at that time, I truly believe any team out there that had that number 1 overall pick, they were going to take Greg Oden. Greg Oden looked different than any other player in college basketball. Greg Oden was dominant. Greg Oden hurts his right hand. He shoots and makes free throws with his left hand. Greg Oden was unstoppable in college, and he looked the part, looked the part in the NBA. And when he was on the floor, he was pretty effective. Zion, very effective when he's been on the floor. But it does sound like his commitment to the game has been a problem. I have to say Zion's more of a bust because Greg Oden's issues weren't from lack of effort, lack of trying, lack of caring. Zion, I think you can contribute a lot of that to him. Getting out of shape, not being a good teammate, being a distraction, having the family already talk on behalf of him, saying that they want out. To me, he's a bigger bust. He's become more of a distraction. I have a bigger problem with Zion than I do with Greg Oden back in the day. I have to say that. Now, the other thing, too, it's funny how history repeats itself. There's always the big debate of, man, did Portland screw up back in the day by picking by picking Greg Oden over Kevin Durant? There's a lot of those teams now, those same debates about whether New Orleans made the right decision or not in picking Zion Williams over Ja Morant. Ja Morant looks like he's on his way to being one of the next big thing. He is the next big thing. He already is a big deal, a big thing in the NBA, one of the biggest draws in the NBA, and he's doing it in Memphis. But everyone out there, and it's kind of funny, because of the fact that Kevin Durant going to Oklahoma City, technically, but drafted by the Supersonics, but Oklahoma City, the fact that wasn't a big market. He was able to develop himself in a small market that not a lot of people were paying attention to. He was a big fish in a little pond. And that's Ja Morant right now in Memphis. Imagine what happens if Ja Morant, when he gets to that point that Kevin Durant did, maybe let's say he gets about 7 years. I mean, people forget Kevin Durant gave Oklahoma City 9 years. I had a problem with where Kevin Durant went. I had no issue with Kevin Durant leaving the Oklahoma City Thunder at the time. When you were Kevin Durant and you gave Oklahoma City 9 years, he played 9 seasons with Oklahoma City. 9 seasons. He played 9 years. They went to an NBA Finals, and from that point that they went to the NBA Finals, they didn't add pieces to that roster. They took them away. How many times do you see a team like, for instance, the Cincinnati Bengals getting to the Super Bowl? Your initial reaction is, man, if Joe Burrow and the Bengals got to the Super Bowl in year 2 with all this talent, imagine how many more Super Bowls they're going to get to with all this cap space, because they're just going to continue to add talent. Well, imagine if over the next couple of years, the Bengals move on from T. Higgins, they move on from Boyd, they move on from Mixon, and they don't bring in better pieces. Let's say Joe Burrow really, really loves Zach Taylor, and instead of extending Zach Taylor, which they've already done, they got rid of Zach Taylor, and they bring in a coach that Joe Burrow does not connect with as much. That's what happened in Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant moving on from the Thunder, I had no issue with it. He gave them 9 strong-ass years. And after they went to the NBA Finals, everyone said, man, the sky's the limit. They have James Harden, they have Russell Westbrook, they have Kevin Durant. Just imagine how far they're going to continue to go. And then they move on, of course, from James Harden. And then they move on from Serge Ibaka, right? And then his favorite coach, Kevin Durant, loved Scott Brooks. He was furious when they moved on from Scott Brooks. And at that point, there was no need for him. I gave you 9 years. You took more pieces away. They brought pieces in. I'm out. So I had no problem with that. Ja Morant's going to get to that same point. Memphis is a very similar, in a very similar situation. Kev back with us now. Of course, doing NBA talk because we have to wrap things up because we have Coach Nagy coming up here in a few. But bigger bust right now, Zion. Greg, like I said, if Zion Williamson doesn't play a game the rest of the season, Zion would have only played 3 more games the first 3 years of his career than what Greg Oden did the first 3 years of his. We look at Greg Oden as being possibly one of the biggest busts in NBA history. I think you need to let Zion's career finish before we put him there. But if it's just based on the first 3 years, I think I have to put Zion ahead of him as far as one of the biggest busts in NBA. Both had high expectations coming in.
Definitely had high expectations coming in. I'll say this about him and Ja Morant. I was always Ja Morant over him, just simply based off what I saw in college and the injuries that Zion was already dealing with when he was in college and in high school and everything like that. As far as him a bust, I know he's like an easy punching bag right now, but shoot, a year ago, he was an all-star. Not only an all-star, but an all-star starter. And I know like people are like, oh man, it's just an all-star game, but that means a lot. That still means something. This isn't like the NFL and the Pro Bowl. Being an all-star in the NBA still means something. Still means something. You're respected by your peers and everything like that. He's a punching bag because of the weight situation. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say like, all right, let's see next year. So if he's banged up again next year and he can't keep his weight down, then I'll jump on the he's a bust situation. But I can't jump on that train right now because just a year ago, he was tearing up the NBA. He was having triple doubles. They was basically having him play the point guard position and everything like that. So I can't call him a bust yet.
All right, fair enough. And I wish we had more time, but I did talk about how history repeats itself because everyone out there is saying, man, they made the wrong choice. They should have drafted Ja Morant over him. I don't think that the decision between Ja and Zion was as tight heading into that draft. It's easy to compare the two now, but I said it's very similar to the Kevin Durant, Greg Oden days, where I think anyone that had the number one overall pick, if you take a look at how both were coming out of college at that time, Greg Oden and everyone out there, remember, it was still a centered game. It was a centered game. Like, it was a center-based game at that time. Everything was run through the center position at that time. That's why I hate when people get mad at Portland for taking Greg Oden, mainly because that's what you were supposed to do. Imagine, in a point guard driven league, if you have the top point guard coming out of the league and then a top center, and you end up taking the top center over the top point guard, you'd get destroyed. Obviously, it's easy to say, man, Portland would have killed it with Kevin Durant. Well, yeah, but at the time, you got to think of where we're at within the history of that game. At that time, Greg Oden was supposed to be the next big center, go against the Shaqs and the Yao Mings of the world during that time. Kevin Durant goes to the Supersonics, which, by the way, do you realize how long that dude's played?
Man,
that guy's been around a while.
Long time.
Yeah, I just don't think that's fair to make those comparisons. But the John Morant Zion thing is very similar to that Greg Oden and Kevin Durant type of deal way back when. All right, the Wright State Raiders in action tonight at the Nutter Center. They welcome in Oakland. Wright State, the 4 seed, Oakland, the 5 seed, conference tournament action, quarterfinal action, and the winner of tonight's game advances to the Horizon League semifinals, which will be at Indiana Farmers Coliseum in Indianapolis. So another opportunity. If Wright State wins tonight, they'd be back in the semifinals for the third time in the last 4 years, looking to get back to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, they've had a couple crushing losses in the conference tournament the last couple of years. Remember last year, I couldn't believe it. I think it was a 24-point lead. With 24-point lead with 6 minutes to go. All right, Scott Leo and I, we had the radio call. For whatever reason, the Jim Brown, Chris Collins, no one can replace those two. They kick ass. I think they don't get enough attention. Chris Collins, of the radio broadcasters in town, Chris Collins does not get enough attention. Like, Chris is so freaking good. He's so elite. Doesn't get enough attention. I've loved watching Wright State give him the attention and the respect that he deserves this year. It's been awesome. Chris and Jim, shout out to them. But Scott Leo and I, we're doing the radio call tonight. We did the radio call a year ago for the quarterfinal game.
They letting you back in the building?
Wright State had a 24-point lead with 6 minutes to go. I look at Scott and I say, during a timeout, it was that under 8 minute media timeout. And I look at Scott and he goes, are you going to go to Indy for the semifinals? I said, I'll go if they get to the championship game. We come back after that media timeout, Kev. Wright State blew a 24-point lead in 6 minutes. I've never seen anything like it.
Heartbreaker.
That arena was silent. There was no one there. There's no fans in the stands. Remember? But it was the strangest, weirdest development I've ever seen in a game. I've never seen a 24-point lead or whatever it was be evaporated that quickly. Unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, you think you're holding the ball, but they turned it over, just taking weird shots. It was so strange to me. But they're back in the quarterfinals, back at the Nutter Center tonight, 7 o'clock to tip off, 4 versus 5, a chance to get to the semifinals. We'll be joined by Wright State head basketball coach Scott Nagy. He joins us next. More of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on the other side.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here.